Who's ready for a summer without talk of the ACC imploding?
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, and thank you all for joining, and thank you all who have made Locked On BC your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. On today's show, we've got a packed episode here on Friday. We're going to talk about those 26 recruits who are starting to get a lot of attention. I'll explain who's going after them and one particular recruit that is getting a ton of attention. We'll explain who that is. We're going to talk about the doomsday clock as the ACC might have an end date coming up, and I'll explain when that's going to be. But for now, we'll kick things off by telling you the ACC is going to be fine, at least for now. So let's get into that. The ACC and their media rights partner ESPN announced that the option for their contract and grants of rights is going to be picked up and continue on until 2036. This is not surprising. They had until February 1st to make this announcement, and given the value that they're getting out of the ACC in terms of, all the stock and games that they can put on, this gives them a lot of flexibility. They were gonna pick that up. It was not a surprise, but there was more things that went along beyond the 2036 date that I thought was interesting and worth our discussion here because it does contextualize this whole issue. So we have been listening for the last year from Florida State writers, Florida who you can't sometimes distinguish from their fans, the players, everybody complaining and complaining and complaining about the ACC. I think it's kind of ironic this all gets fixed the year that they go 2-10. But Florida State, they're suing the ACC to get out of this grant of rights. Clemson, they're exploring suing the ACC. There's all this talk about the ACC blowing up, that all these other schools are going to go to the Big Ten and SEC, and the ACC is going to be a shell of itself with schools like Boston College and Wake Forest stuck here to hold down the fort in a brand that was going to be dead. If you listen to any pundit, they were all saying, this is going to be the end. The Florida State, they've got a rock-tight alibi to get out of this grant of rights, and they're going to be gone, and the ACC is going to be gone. Well, hold your horses, folks, because until at least 2031, this conference isn't going anywhere. Now, there may be some griping. I'm sure there will be. But credit has to go to Jim Phillips, the ACC commissioner, for putting this all together and fixing things, because they did put in some things that will hopefully shut up Florida State and Clemson. And the schools like that, UNC and Miami also should be included in this group. We've already seen in the last year the I think he called it like the winning clause. Like if you win, you get extra cash. And for schools like SMU and Clemson this year, that was good. It was supposed to help Florida State, but again, they went 2-10, so they don't get to get a piece of that pie. That's too bad for them. But what they do get now is what's called a value adds clause. And basically, the value adds clause, according to an article by David Hale and Andrew Adelson, these adds include creating more marquee matchups in football and men's basketball to maximize content on the networks. So you're going to see more. We talked about it, I believe, at this season that like Clemson and Notre Dame is going to become an everyday thing, an every year thing, excuse me. So that's going to be something that you're going to see. And unfortunately for Boston College, they don't add a ton of value. Now their ratings are usually pretty decent, and you may be surprised if you actually look up how they do. And it's not just against the Notre Dames and things like that. Their games against SMU, another small school, were pretty good. But they're not going to I have a hard time believing that Boston College is going to get pieces of that. But that's another thing that's going to appease the schools that are trying to get out of this and end those lawsuits. That's the important part of all this. They got to end those lawsuits because who knows what, circuit judge they get that could see things in a different way and really screw things up. So this helps there. in basketball, I'm not sure how they're going to do that. I was thinking like immediately, like, does that mean more like Duke and UNC games? But they already play each other twice. So I don't know if that's the case, but I'm sure they're going to find, the Louisvilles and Dukes or Louisville's a marquee product right now. They're a top 25 team, continuing to find those teams that are not Boston College. I get it. We can't even sell seats in our own Conti Forum. But that's another piece. And then the third piece that came out would be a brands fund that they're looking into. The brands fund is specifically made to shut those schools up, the Florida States, the Clemsons, and Miamis. Basically, they're going to pool some of the revenue sharing money together. And I'm sure a lot of this has to do with they have extra money to play around with now that SMU, Cal, and Stanford are not taking a full cut or a cut at all. They're going to get some of that. So they're going to give money to whoever brings the most eyeballs. They're going to get a bigger cut of the pie, and that should help limit the difference between, because Clemson football, when they play a big school or play on primetime, they get good eyeballs, much more than if Wake Forest played at primetime. So they're going to get rewarded by this, and they're going to get more money. And hopefully, the hope is that these little clauses are going to help shrink the gap between the ACC and the SEC and Big Ten. I mean, I talked to some of my recruiting friends, and they're saying the difference in revenue share right now between an ACC school and say Clemson and Rutgers can offer more money, which is crazy. Purdue can offer more money because that's just the way things are. Mississippi State can offer more money. So if you're going after a recruit and money is the only thing, you can't just it's going to be impossible to match all of that with NIL money. the revenue sharing, which is what this should fix, is what's going to kill you. For Boston College, I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. I mean, BC's not going after blue chip recruits, and they can sell development with Bill O'Brien and money. You're going to get money at BC. It's not like you're going here and being broke. The schools, they're going to have a good pot for football. It's just other schools for elite recruits are going to go after it. But again, I say this again. When has BC ever gone after elite recruits? It never happens. So don't say that this is going to screw them over in that page, because it's just a duck of a different color, because it's the same story that you're going to get back before there was the transfer portal, back before there was NIL, that other schools are going to have more resources to go after you, and you're not going to be able to do a dang thing about it. So this, hey, maybe BC starts getting good. Maybe they start getting some extra money out of this. But I'm bringing this up because there was one last thing on here. There's another little clause that I think really does impact BC, and I'll explain what that is in just a moment. Attending NFL playoff games is an experience like no other. The excitement, the energy, and the connection with fans are unmatched. I remember going to my first Patriots game when they clinched a playoff win live. Man, it's a memory I'll never forget. This year, Game Time makes it even easier to create those unforgettable moments with new features. Game Time Picks. It filters out the fluff and shows you only the best deals on great seats. I used Game Time Picks to grab tickets for a BC football game last season, and it couldn't have been easier. I found a super deal that gave me incredible value for amazing seats, and I could even preview the view from my spot before buying. The all-in pricing and Game Time Changer is a Game Time Changer, no surprise fees at checkout. As I said before, when I bought these tickets, I wanted an overhang. It was going to be raining. I found seats that I knew were going to be overhang, checked them out, got there, and I stayed completely dry, and I thank Game Time for that. Plus, knowing my tickets were backed by the Game Time guarantee gave me complete peace of mind. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. This is Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black. Thank you all for joining us. And if you have not done so already, I want to invite you to check out another great podcast, the Locked On Red Sox. The Red Sox are looking to rebound and finally get a good team out on the field. They've got everything covered, from the farm system to the trades they've made to the new roster and everything in between. Check out Locked On Red Sox on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Now, the second part I want to talk about, there was another little clause that has not passed yet, but it's something that Florida State, Clemson, Miami, maybe even UNC are starting to push for, which is to agree to all those things I mentioned, the brands clause, the added value, all that good stuff, but to also add an end date to the grant of rights that's before 2036, and that is a 2031 date, the option to get out that date. And the reason that they want that is that they want the ability to test the market when SEC and Big Ten's deals end that same year. So it makes a lot of sense. For a lot of schools, that could be the year where the super conferences start. So we don't know if that was included yet. All we got was a press release with a lot of fluff on it. But that was something that was brought up in the Hale and Adelson piece as something to keep an eye on. Now, I look at that and, I think it makes a lot of sense for those schools. Of course, if you want to do that. It's funny, though, that they want to go to the SEC where, Florida State specifically, where the SEC, according to sources there, called them a bad partner they didn't want to deal with, and that they brought no added value. But hey, don't tell that to a Seminoles fan because they think they're God's gift to college football. So yes, I cover BC. You can get on me for that. I don't care, but I'm telling you the truth, and you know it. All those talks are going on, that they're going to try to get out. This value adds, does hopefully keep things together for a while. But what if this 2031 date does happen? That might start the doomsday clock for the ACC, as the potential of a mega conference between the Big Ten and SEC would start, and all the other schools can fend for themselves. So for BC, the doomsday clock means one thing. You've got, if that's the case, and this is how they should be treating college sports anyways, you need to start to rehab your image quickly. You've already started it with football. I truly believe that Bill O'Brien is the best option for this program, and that he will get this football program, which is the marquee program, in better shape for when, in the next couple of years. Maybe not, maybe they'll just continue to build the program. But I think that this team is going to really surprise folks in the next few years, especially, when I see what's going on the recruiting trail, and you're going to be getting that news soon. They're doing some things. Okay. Additionally, the other end of the spectrum, there's other parts of this program that are not holding their weight, and that would be men's basketball. So you have, in theory, 6 years, 6 seasons to get things, or 5 seasons to whatever, 5 or 6 seasons to get your act together. You best believe that when media rights holders like ESPN or Fox turn on a BC basketball game, they see a Conti Forum that's embarrassingly empty, that does not hold a candle to Duke, UNC, Virginia, I mean, you name it. They're not in the same league. And a product that stinks. Let's just be frank, it stinks. So now you put yourself in Blake James's shoes. You have a date where you could lose everything if you don't improve your product. What do? You need to act fast. You need to start to move things in motion to get that product better. And so if I were Blake James, I would be really strongly considering, if you have the funds to do it, and you should, because you're going to be losing a lot more funds if you don't do it, moving on from Rio Grande. Like, you have to. Like, you cannot, like, all the buzz, like, when I write about it, and I write about the struggles of BC basketball, some folks are like, yeah, he's got like 2 more years left. It's BC. They got to give him 2 more years. No. Look at what could be coming down the road. Look at that. You could be on the outside looking in again if you don't get that fixed. You have a time limit here. Going back to my previous episode, you cannot cheap out if you're going to do this. You're going to have to, first of all, whatever his buyout is, and it's private, we don't know what that is. It's going to cost BC some money to get out of that. But they're not making any money off of him anyways. Like, the program is, I'm sure, a giant red spot on their accounting books. So just make it a bigger red spot. Go in there, buy him out if you have to. And then, you're going to have to. And then you're going to have to spend again, but you're Boston College. You have money. You're not poor. Okay. And that's on Blake James. He's going to have to sell this to the upper administration. That's not going to be easy. But get yourself a Bill O'Brien type coach for basketball that can bring excitement, that can bring fans in, that's going to show those media folks that when you're going for that new rights deal, if Florida State, Clemson, UNC, Virginia, whatever, run away, that you're worthy of that. You can make Boston College a good brand in 5 or 6 years if you're making tournaments, if you're winning top 25 games, if you're packing Conti Forum and making it look, I mean, God, I know it. I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but I mean, God, if you can make it look like what they do for basketball, I mean, for hockey, you got something there. But that's quite the ways down the road from what they got to do. They've got a lot of work to get to that point. But man, if you could do that, then all of a sudden these folks are going to be like, yeah, BC's a valuable brand. We need to bring them aboard. But I have to say, it's got to start with your coach. He's not doing it right now. You're going to get to see on Saturday them play Florida State, a team who last year, I think it was last 2 years, has been terrible. But I believe that they're starting to figure things out. And they're playing at home. And I don't think BC has much of a chance. I think they're probably going to, there's a very good chance that they lose out the rest of the season, which is so sad. Because this, was a team that was in the NIT last year. Yeah, Florida State is 13-8 this year, 4-6 in conference. So they're not great, but they're not bad either. They're improving, not like you who are going in the wrong direction. So this 2031 date to me should spark a flame that you got to do it now. Like, you cannot keep doing things the way Boston College does things if you want to continue to play at a high level. You cannot continue to have this basketball program go out there and be a blight on your your resume, because you've done such a good job of rehabbing football. Baseball's rehabbed. The hockey is elite. Women's lacrosse is elite. Women's basketball, we could talk about that too. They're not in great shape, but most of your big programs are in good shape, except for men's basketball. And that is a major issue. So maybe if Florida State and Clemson and all them, they get that 2031 date, added to this provision, that could be another catalyst for BC to make a change. Now, we're going to have to wait to see how the rest of the season goes. We saw Dion Brown playing much better. Josh Beadle looked pretty good. You got Chad Venning, who plays his butt off every game. Obviously, Donald Hand. But that coaching change might be what you need to do. I also say that on top of this media rights thing, like at the end of this season, when it's all said and done, and BC is maybe not playing in the ACC right now, they're not playing in the ACC tournament. They're not playing in any postseason. The season's just going to end. What's going to happen next? Not coaching. You best believe that Donald Hand probably is going to enter the transfer portal. Was a guy averaging 17 points a game. If Earl Grant's coming back, he's not coming back. But if you bring back a good coach, again, this is how one coaching change can make a big difference. You could get Donald Hand back. Like, if he sees that BC is going to bring in somebody, maybe he doesn't enter the transfer. Maybe he does. I don't know. But maybe he doesn't. That's another piece. That's another piece of why this seems like this has to light a fire under BC's butt. That the cash cow that they've relied on could dry up soon if they don't fix this. Now, in our final segment, let's talk some football recruiting. It's another recruiting weekend. I'll give you a quick update on some of the recruits that BC's attacking, who they've landed, and I'll give you a whole bunch more. We'll get into all of that in just a moment. Locked on Boston College, AJ Black here. Thank you all who have become a VIP subscriber at Eagle Insider. And for all of you who have not done so already, subscribe to Locked on BC on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. We're off season. I don't talk a ton of basketball because it's death. Just like watching it on TV, it's like death for my podcast. Like, I don't do whole episodes. So a lot of this is evergreen. We're talking like end of football year stuff, recruiting, topics that are going on. Like we just talked about ACC media rights. Go back and check out some of our previous episodes. They're on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. So you've got a 60-minute drive. You can get two, maybe 3 episodes of Locked on BC in. Go do that. I think you'll enjoy it. I hope you enjoy it. I think you will. Well, anyways, let's talk some recruiting because that's the big stuff going on right now. And as I kind of alluded before, BC's doing a heck of a job with the class of 26 and beyond. I have kind of teased that there's another commitment coming, one that I think you guys are going to be very excited about. We'll find that out next week. I can't give you more because one thing with recruiting is I don't spoil kids' announcements. Sometimes I've been told to put in crystal balls, but you see less and less of those because the focus is less on jumping a kid's announcement. So I don't do a ton of those. Now, additionally, the class of 26, they've landed 2 commitments in the last week or so, DJ Biggins and Gerald Green. Kind of quieter commitments, but with not huge offer lists. And I get that, like not the most exciting names, but if you trust their development and their eye for talent, then you should be okay with this. But all the other guys that they've landed have already started getting it offers. Mark Antunes of Catholic Memorial, big 6'7" offensive lineman. He's the first one to commit to Bill O'Brien. He got an offer from Syracuse. You have Mason Leak, who is an edge rusher from Bacon Academy in Connecticut, who has offers now from Wake Forest and Syracuse. So for all you folks that are like, this guy doesn't have any Power 5 offers, this guy doesn't have any Power 5 offers, that's like your end all be all. Hey, other than the 2 new guys who are just kind of getting on the scene, everyone does. Corinne Berry, their quarterback, he is getting a ton of offers. He's not announcing a lot of them, but he has offers from Purdue and Cal. There's more that he has not said. He's getting a ton of offers. Brady Becken, who's had offers before he even committed to BC. I think it was Pitt and Rutgers and Syracuse. They were all after him. Same thing with Dean Rixnitis. So you're seeing what I'm talking about. Dominic Funk had offers from everybody. So this class is already getting guys that are getting a ton of attention. They're going to be getting more guys that are getting a ton of attention. So I'm seeing, the class ended for the class of 2025 with a ranking of around 48. Not what you would expect for Bill O'Brien, but as I've said before, he had 6 months to put together a class. He was up against teams that have been recruiting these kids for years. He's got more time now. The class is at 16 right now, the ranking on 247. I don't expect it to be that low. I mean, that would be pretty cool, but let's be realistic here. That being said, could this be a top 30 recruiting class? Absolutely. I think so. You're going to have a lot of kids here that are getting offers from other big schools, that are getting big offer lists, potential 4 stars. I've mentioned Jordan Thomas. I've mentioned Kai Pritchard. There's other guys out there that they've been looking at and new offers going out too, that they're going to have some really good recruits, but you're going to have to deal with, when you go for higher quality recruits, you're going to have to go with recruiting battles. You didn't have a ton of those in 25. The one recruit that left was Nolan James, because Notre Dame came calling, and that was his dream school. But you're going to have other guys now that you're going to bring in that other schools are going to want. And you may lose a few, but you might also win a few too. It's steal. I mean, look at last year. They stole a whole bunch. They stole from Utah. They stole from Syracuse. They did a good job of flipping a bunch. It's Georgia Southern, their best recruit, they flipped from Georgia Southern, which I know it doesn't really matter, but you get what I'm saying, right? So with all that being said, this is going to be a fascinating recruiting class, and I'll have it all covered here. When we get to spring practices, there'll be more recruits coming to check it out. This weekend is one. I'll have that details up on Eagle Insider for my VIPs. You'll have it during spring practice where a lot of kids are coming. I'll have all that. We'll be, it's off season, and I'm not going to sit here and talk about BC basketball's dreadful games every week. But I will be talking about everything going on behind the scenes. So hopefully you enjoy all of that. Well, thank you all for listening. This is AJ Black. You can follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247 or on Blue Sky. I'm on Threads. You can get me everywhere on social media. Check me out at Eagle Insider for my written work. And I'll see you again on Monday for another episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.